Hello, and welcome along to my Epsom Derby preview, focusing in on the centrepiece tomorrow, the third classic of the turf season, the Derby. Now, the Derby tomorrow is throwing up a lot of interesting things. On the course, it's one of the most interesting and open derbies we've had for a long time. And off the course, there are certain things that might happen which I hope, for God's sake, do not impact this race at all. We saw what happened at Aintree a couple of months ago. For all the wrong reasons, the start of the race was delayed. And this is very much a different kettle of fish here. We're dealing with highly strung 3-year-olds who, for most, it will be their first experience of a big day, of a massive crowd. And if these idiotic people decide to try and ruin that and spoil it and upstage it, I know then I seriously worry for what might happen. So I just hope to God the security measures in place are robust and strong enough to combat these idiots. And I just hope that we talk about the race for the right reasons, what happens on the track rather than what happened off the track, like we did at Aintree last year. Now, the Derby itself this year promises to be a very interesting race, as I mentioned at the start of my preview, because this year, compared to recent years, we've not got one standout candidate. The trials have thrown up more questions than answers, in my opinion, and we come into the Derby now where there's probably about 6 or 7 genuine contenders who could possibly win the race, and there are some very interesting outsiders who could definitely upset the apple cart and win the Derby as well. Looking at the current market leader, August Rodan, he's still currently at the moment, time of recording, a 7-2 favourite off the back of that debacle at Newmarket in the Guineas, in which he ran a poor race. In hindsight, and I get hindsight's a wonderful thing, and people watching this might think, oh, it's easy now to say that. I never really felt that the Guineas was always going to be was always going to be August Rodan's his main target this season. It was always a starting point. I didn't really buy into the whole Triple Crown talk. Look, it'd have been great had he won the Guineas coming into a derby, needing to win that, which would then set him up for the St Leger, like Camelot in 2012, hoping to win all three classics. Look, I didn't think it was ever going to happen, to be honest. It takes an incredibly gifted horse to win all three classics, the Guineas, the Derby, and the St Leger. But August Rodan's race really did fall apart. However, the only positive I can take from that is Little Big Bear ran poorly in that Guineas too. He dropped back down to 6 furlongs last week in the Sandy Lane and won very comfortably. So there is some comfort to take from that, and the fact that August Rodan can possibly bounce back. I think he can. And you can't write him off in any capacity. I always felt that the Derby was the one race in which Aidan O'Brien would have targeted August Rodan for primarily, and everything else would have been a bonus, in my opinion. I think August Rodan's bred to stay the trip, of course he is. And it would not shock me if he were to win the Derby here. He's not my pick in this race, but you can't discard him at your peril, basically. And I think he's got a real good chance here. But it's very interesting to see how he's still favourite off the back of that poor run at Newmarket. Arrest comes into this off the back of a very impressive win at Chester and the Chester Vase. Again, I'm not too sure how strong the form in behind is from that race at Chester. Very similar to, say, the Last Dance, the current Oaks favourite. I'm not too sure, or not sorry, I'm not too sure how strong both pieces of form are from Chester in that soft ground. But the rest showed a lot of nice balance and a lot of nice. He he trialled very impressively at Epsom at Breakfast with the Stars. He seemed well balanced to Epsom, came round Tatton Corner nicely, and seemed to deal with the camber pretty comfortably. And after that exercise, Frankie gave a glowing report anyway. So all the signs are positive for a good run from Arrest. I think he's got a nice chance here, and he's currently 92. I expect that to be to shorten a lot tomorrow. I think the Frankie factor will very much be a thing, as it will do today, possibly for Soul Sister in the Oaks, and of course going into Royal Ascot. I think lots of people will latch onto Frankie's rides, with it being his last derby, his last Royal Ascot coming up too. I think a lot of people will latch onto that Frankie factor, and I can see Arrest vying August Rodan possibly to even go off favourite tomorrow. I thought Military Order was one of the was one of the more gutsy trial winners. He won the rearranged Lingfield Derby trial. I was there when it was changed on the weather surface due to it being abandoned on the turf due to the heavy downpour they had in the week building up to that. And Military Order was a very gutsy winner that day, fending off the challenge of Waipiro, who comes into this at 25 to 1. The positive signs from Ed Walker's yard are Waipiro's got a good chance at a big price here. I think he can outrun his 25 to 1 odds. He was very gutsy in defeat at Lingfield last time and gave Military Order a lot to think about. Military Order, of course, looking to emulate his brother Adayar, who won the Derby in 2021, and Military Order's coming back to, or coming to Epsom, I should say, 2 years later, looking to win the Derby. And he's proved to me after especially at Lingfield on his last start, that he's not a soft ground horse, as we saw at Newbury at the start of the season. And he's very much a horse who can handle the hustle and bustle of a race. And he was very gutsy when narrowly defeating Waipiro at Lingfield. I think he's got a good chance here and looks to be one of the main contenders. The horse who I think will win the Derby is Passenger, and he was probably one of the most intriguing and most eye-catching trial runners in that Dante at York a couple of weeks ago when everything seemed to go wrong. You could run that race 9 times out of 10. Passenger would win the Dante 9 times out of 10. However, the one time out of 10 it could have gone wrong, it did go wrong. And Richard Kingscote looked for every gap possible at York, and every gap, just the door kept slamming shut in his face. And in the end, Passenger was looked after to finish a very eye-catching third. Connections since have supplemented him for the Derby, and I think he's got a cracking chance here. Of course, Sir Michael Stout, we go back 12 months. Desert Crown was a very impressive winner of the Derby when ridden by Richard Kingscote last year, and I think Sir Michael Stout has another good chance in his yard here. And Passenger, for me, off the back of the trials and all the evidence we've seen so far, would be my main contender, my main hope, who I think will win the Derby. I think he's a real nice horse, and I think he's got all the right ticks all the right boxes for this. He looks a lovely, well balanced horse. Hopefully, things go better this time around. If they do, I think he's got a cracking chance of winning the Derby here. Moving down the rest of the field here, the Foxes, I'd be keen to sort of side away from him after he's running the Dante. His balance to me doesn't seem suited to the Canberra Epsom. He hung quite badly right at York in the Dante, and I don't really think that's going to help him at all at Epsom. The Canberra tends to bring a horse to its left, down towards that far side rail. If he hangs right this time around, he's going to go all the way across to the stand side. I don't think it's going to suit him here. I'm not too sure if he's well balanced enough to handle the Canberra and Epsom. I'll be willing to side away from him, although also gutsy winner, of course, of the Dante. I thought White Birch was the one horse, apart from Passenger, to take out of the Dante. Hit the line very strong. A Ballysax winner at the start of the season at Leopardstown. Of course, one of Ireland's most notable Derby trials. A shock winner there. But he's built upon that when finishing a good second in the Dante. Hit the line very strong in that Dante too, which suggests to me the step up in trip again from a mile and a quarter at York to the mile and a half at Epsom will be very much tailor made for him here. And the way in which he hit the line suggests to me if he were to run well here again and place, or at least even win the Derby, we could see him line up at Doncaster in the St Ledger in September. He's won at a big price I'm very keen on. I think he's a lovely horse, a lovely big physical strapping horse, and I think he'll love the step up in trip. And I think he's got a cracking chance of outrunning those current 12-1 odds. Another horse I'm very keen on at a big price is Dubai Mile. I watched him win on debut at Windsor last August in the build up to the York Juddmonte meeting, the Ebor meeting, I should say. And he was very raw, very green, the big physical son of Roaring Lion. And it all just seemed to fall into place with him at St Cloud. He ran a very nice race at Newmarket after winning at Windsor, but then stepped up to the mile and the quarter at St Cloud and won a Group 1. He then ran a lovely trial, I felt, one of the more better trials we've seen alongside White Birch and Passenger in the 2000 Guineas. A trip, the inadequate one, a mile, which never really suited him, but the soft ground was a slight equaliser for him. He stuck on well enough, finished a respectable fifth, a lovely trial for him to bring him forward for the Derby, but he's always been Dubai Mile, for me, in my opinion, a DXB type of horse. We go back to 2018, DXB finished second in the Derby, and for me was always a horse who would show further promise over an extended trip. He was seen locking horn to Stradivarius many a time in the Goodwood Cup, placed in the Ascot Gold Cup too, and I think we could see Dubai Mile after his 3-year-old season from ages 4, 5, 6, maybe even 7, stick around and be a serious contender in the staying division. I think he's a lovely horse. He'll love this trip, I think. Dan Muscat gets on very well with him. And for me, currently 18-1, he'd be another horse who I'm very keen on to outrun his big odds. So the two I take away from the Derby, I think Passenger will win the Derby. I think he's got a cracking chance here. But two bigger prices I'm willing to play here are White Birch at 12-1. I thought his Dante run was very impressive. And also his Ballysax win and also Dubai Mile. I think both those two horses here are coming into the Derby massively underrated. I think they've both got cracking chances of running a fantastic race. Look, either way, we all hope it goes very smoothly tomorrow. There's no problems, and we can all reflect upon what was a fantastic Derby and focus on the most important things on the track rather than what goes on. Hopefully, nothing goes on before the race, but we can only hope that. And we just hope, as I said right at the top of this preview, that all the security measures in place are robust and strong enough to combat what could happen. So that was my 2023 Derby preview, guys. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. I'm intrigued to hear what you think of the race itself, with it being such a wide open renewal this year. Comment any suggestions you've got, horses you think can win the Derby, and I'll see you all very soon.